Hit by a global chip shortage and major tech stock sell-off, semiconductor stocks have been struggling to find solid ground in the current market. Then there, of course, is also the push to bring more of that manufacturing to the United States. Joining us from Davos, our own Brian Sozzi. Brian Sozzi, it's great to see you've got a special guest with you who can talk a lot about what's going on in semiconductors.
Hey, Julie, thanks so much. Good to hear you, I should say. And I'm joined by Pat Gelsinger. Good to see you. I thought you just existed on Twitter.
There we go. There is a human behind the Twitter feed.
Indeed, there is. So I really liked your latest LinkedIn post. You know, I follow a lot of your stuff. And you say that the world is at a strategic inflection point. Talk to us about that.
Well, you know, Andy Grove had talked about the idea of an inflection point. You get to this moment where, boy, you know, a certain set of small things can cause you to decay, or a certain set of small things can cause you to rise in a sustained way. And it's that moment in time to detect, okay, we're at something really important, and we got to just make real decisions that influence us to be on that arc upward. And we think that the industry, the world, is at this digital renaissance point where we get to decide what and how the role of digital plays, but importantly, how semiconductors fit underneath that. Because what portion of your life, you know, Sozzi, isn't going more digital? Well, everything is.
Every second of my life is more digital.
And everything digital runs on semiconductors. It is that important to the future of everything.
I saw you, and also in that LinkedIn post, wearing a shirt that said Torrid. That seems to be the new rallying cry inside of Intel.
Well, everybody, you know, is running around with their, Torrid stickers and, Torrid shirts. And of course, if you're really cool, you describe how you're Torrid squared as well. But, you know, everybody is sort of saying, hey, we got to move fast. We got to be decisive. You know, we have to, set a pace, not just for the company, but for the industry, if we're going to capitalize on this inflection point.
We were joking off camera, I can't keep up with how many things you are working on. You are a true Energizer bunny up at 4 a.m. Let's start on the Foundry business. How much business have you generated from that? Day one, you put that stake in the ground, said, hey, we need to do this. We need to be making chips for other people.
Yeah, and our Foundry business is a small business today. You know, and the idea behind Foundry is, customers come on, they start using the technology, they start designs, those designs come out, then they go into manufacturing. It's a 2 to 3 year cycle before you see real business coming out of those Foundry decisions. But we're seeing a great pipeline. And as we said on the last earnings call, we have these whales, we have a number of customers that are now doing test chips. We're seeing really good characteristics of people coming onto the Foundry in a big way. And we expect that, as U.S. companies, as Western companies, they want a Western supply chain. And we're seeing response from the defense community in U.S. and Europe as well, in addition to great commercial offerings, that they say, boy, I need more resilient global supply chains.
How many new factories will you build over the next 5 years?
Well, we've created capacity, that allows us to, have in the order of 10 new factories over the next 5 years, but setting up that we can do even more as we go into the second half of the decade as well. And the Ohio and Magdeburg, Germany sites, those are big sites that we can be 8 or 10 fabs on those locations. And part of the announcement as we brought those forward is a big property that we can just, it's like just like cookie cutter, bang, 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 bang. Because if some of these big Foundry opportunities start to emerge, the market emerges like we expect, I'm going to be positioned that, hey, we're ready to just build more capacity to satisfy a world that needs more semiconductors and, more importantly, needs more advanced semiconductor.
Chip shortage, what inning are we in?
We're about halfway through. And my expectation now is that it persists through 2024. And the big issue that we've additionally faced over the last 6 to 9 months is equipment that goes into the fabs. So now we and others are building the fabs, but we need the equipment to come into the fab to turn them into manufacturing output. And those equipment lead times have pushed out pretty substantially over the last 6 months.
Does President Biden, he talked about removing tariffs on China this morning. It seems to be a far way from that happening, but how would that impact your business?
Generally, we think it's a reasonable positive. We think it's been a bit punitive, hasn't necessarily helped our business at this point. So we think it's an incremental positive, but not a huge difference one way or the other.
Inflation, how big of a concern is it for your business?
Well, inflation, overall we see a little bit of a stepping back. And as we indicated in our last earnings call, a bit of softening on the consumer side, but the business and the commercial side, very strong, very robust. And to some ways, maybe a little bit of a lemon lemonade kind of perspective, a little bit of softening in demand actually gives us a bit of time to catch up in supply demand as well, which we know how hard that has been for the world to deal with the overall supply chain challenges.
I've talked to a lot of executives so far at the event, and no one's saying recession, and I get it. No one wants to hop on camera and talk about recession. I get it. But there does appear to be a slowing. So you maybe are in that camp.
Yeah, I think there's a slowing. I think there's going to be a period, people are fighting inflation, so there's going to be a tightening of monetary policy as well. I think these are all natural. And clearly we have, Shanghai port shutdowns, and, how China is managing through some of those implications. Europe is figuring out, what it looks like with the Ukraine situation. So, I think there's a general softening and a general tightening of policy, and we think that's probably a couple of quarters in front of us.
You've spent most of your career in the tech space. Can you explain what has happened from a stock perspective to the average person out there, as someone in the tech industry? What is going on?
Well, I think there was this euphoria on the tech stock growth, and the multiples were just unsustainable. And so there's been a major correction that's occurred. Now, obviously, as you went into COVID, everything's going more digital, so the tech stocks exploded inside of it. And to a great degree, they exploded too much, right? But we've seen that before, multiples of certain segments just get ahead of themselves. So in that sense, I think the correction overall in the tech industry isn't bad, and ultimately it is still a great industry with great growth potential. And, and for us, hey, we're, at a much lower multiple, so we've been impacted less. But obviously, as I've described it, we're out to create a double-double. I'm going to double the earnings of the company, and we're going to double the multiple of the company. This is a great opportunity to be part of the greatest tech turnaround story in history.
You've been very consistent in that since day one we talked. Now, my morning started with an alert from another company that you ran. You were the former CEO of VMware. News this morning that Broadcom might make a play for them. Would a deal like that make sense?
Well, I think, as you look at that, I have a lot of soul in VMware.
I remember you tattooed VMware on your arm, right?
Yeah, one of those nice month-long tattoos. Yes. My wife hated it. She said, get rid of it before we're on vacation. But, I have a lot of soul in that company. And any, change in structure, acquisition, what I would be motivated to see is the innovation spirit of VMware alive and well. This is a large software asset innovating at an important set of hybrid cloud and fundamental platform technologies. And if it doesn't help back that innovation cycle, it's probably not good. If it does, then it's probably good.
Last one, I know you're very passionate about creating the next generation of leaders inside of Intel. How are you doing on the recruiting front?
Recruiting is going well. And, we've pretty well finished the leadership team, the people that report directly. We'll soon be announcing a new general counsel. And then all of my chairs are full at my level. But it's the next level and the next level that we've gotten great talent coming back into the company. And, there's always a war for talent. You're never done in recruiting the best people. But I think we made a lot of progress in a little bit over a year, and really excited about the leadership team that I have around me now. And when we had them in front of the investor community, our analyst day, everybody sort of looked at them all and says, wow, that's a pretty impressive team. Yeah. And that's what I think, too. It's a pretty impressive team.
Well, good luck in the continued evolution of Intel. Good to see you, Pat Gelsinger. Enjoy the rest of the event. Julie, I'll just say this real quickly, too. Before we start this event, Pat and we banged out about 20 push-ups. Actually, I did 5. He did 25. It's his thing now. This guy's in shape, and he's turning around the company. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Insta or it didn't happen. Okay, thanks so much, Saz. Appreciate it. And thanks to Pat as well.